Great. Okay. Welcome, everyone. My name's Amy McCosker. I work for CQ University in the Ag Education and Extension team. Um, we delivered the Excited for Careers in Agriculture project, and of course, specifically in the viticulture and winemaking industry as well. So we took some really great excursions and opportunities to schools in winemaking regions and took them to see some of the amazing produce that's made in their regions. So today we're excited to launch two new viticulture and wine guides for industry and teachers. It's a part of the Excited for Careers in Viticulture and Wine project that I mentioned and that we are running. Despite Australia being one of the world's most productive wine regions, many of the young people living in these communities around those regions are often not aware of the diverse and rewarding careers available in their own backyard. Our research that we conduct alongside the Excited in Careers project has shown that a lot of students actually don't realize what exciting and vibrant winemaking communities they live within and the opportunities that are available to them, after school and, when it comes to thinking of a career. So, we believe and we know from engaging with industry and teachers that a really great way to introduce students to the industry is to get out on farm, but we know that that can be difficult to do, or on vineyard rather. We know that that can be difficult to do, making those connections between industry and the schools can be difficult. Everyone's obviously very busy, trying to find the right time to make that approach and to make that, to organise excursions and the like can be difficult to do. With that in mind, we have designed these two guides to, I guess, try and assist industry on one hand and also schools on the other hand in making those connections and planning these experiences for their students. Earlier this year, we visited the Riverland region of South Australia and we connected with local schools and students to showcase the viticulture and wine sectors as a viable and exciting career pathways for students in that region. So today we're joined by two special guests from that region, and they are Shelley Ray Brennan from Grower Relations and she's a Grower Relations and Technical Advisor at Kingston Estate Wines, and Justine Fogden, who is an experienced ag teacher from Loxton State High School. These are, I guess, people who we know recently have been through this situation of organising and engaging industry to school. And so we're going to discuss today the guides, I guess, and go through some of the ups and downs and interesting things, I guess, that teachers and industry people might like to consider when it comes to engaging with the viticulture and winemaking industry. Thanks so much for your time today, Shelley and Justine.
No worries. Thanks
Okay.
for inviting us.
Yeah, no worries. So, before we get started, I just thought I would share this infographic here. So it just shows, some of the amazing things that people who work in the winemaking and viticulture industries, specifically those under the age of 35, have said that they value and love about working in the viticulture and wine sector. So just taking a quick look around at those, there's some amazing careers and opportunities. And I guess this is what we're trying to uncover and show to students when we take them out into the industry. So, if you look around there, you can see all sorts of opportunities professionally, and I think it also spills over into their personal life as well. So I guess that's why we're here. That's what it is to really show these students what is available. Okay, so today we've released these two guides, an industry guide there on the left and a teacher guide on the right. This is just the front page. I've just put them there for illustrative purposes, and I'll give you guys the links later, and we'll also be emailing them out after the webinar today. All of this is also available on the Wine Australia website, and there's some really great resources there as well for teachers to use. So let's start with the industry guide, and to Shelley to begin with. Shelley, What has been your experience when it comes to engaging with schools?
To be fair, without this is the very t first time that we've had a school inquire in a formal way. Generally, our engagement has been through work experience programs, but nothing like this. So without this project, we wouldn't have yeah, we haven't engaged like this before.
What do you think the reason is that sometimes it can be difficult for industry and school to engage, specifically when we're talking about viticulture and winemaking?
Um, uh, I guess who to contact. Like who would you contact in a large business? Often we're a very large site, so that that I guess networking that we have schools and industry, apart from I guess specific work experience programs, we really don't see schools in networking events or industry body events and things like that, or the ag leads. So I think that having a registry of contacts would be really good, and vice versa. I'm not sure from our part what schools offer ag courses as well.
I think that it can be interesting as well when we consider winemaking as like the creation of alcohol. So obviously the from the outset, the product that's being created isn't designed for the students to consume themselves. And perhaps at the beginning, when you're considering an excursion, that might be a bit of a red flag. But can you explain, I guess, to any teachers that are here why it's that shouldn't be seen as a roadblock to organizing an excursion?
Um, because I guess you've also it's been really clear in the guide not to highlight that it's an alcohol business, and stepping back from that, it's a biological business, it's an instrumentation business, it's a cover crop growing business, it's a HR business. So wine businesses are multifaceted as well. Yes, the end product is a beverage that can have alcohol in it, but there are many other products that are derived from wineries that are not that don't have alcohol. We make grape juice and other things. Also, the wine industry globally is very clear about its social license and alcohol, and are doing everything that they can with advertising and labeling and consciousness about ensuring that alcohol and responsibility. So we feel like we are stewards of the industry, and that we are giving positive messages about the supply chain.
Mhm. So once we get past that initial, I guess, perception and consider the wide opportunities, and one of the things we like to focus on in my team, the Agri-tech education and extension team, is technology. And there's no denying that the viticulture and winemaking industries are really on the forefront of using technology when it comes to the production of beverages and other products. So that's an exciting, I guess, hook as well for bringing students out to see the production that's happening within facilities. You mentioned who's the best person to contact. From your point of view, if a teacher or someone who's organizing an excursion is looking to get in touch with a business like yours, Shelley, what would you recommend that they do?
I think that the very first port of call would be to ring the main or the primary number associated with the business's address, and then businesses have strong internal networks. They would be able to put the teacher in contact with the right person to help them and assist them. So yeah. I think that that would be the first thing, unless they've got a colleague in the business or that, so they could more than welcome. Always encouraging people to use their personal networks as well.
Mhm. And speaking of networks, it has been identified in the guide that sometimes it's worthwhile contacting outside of that, I guess, commercial business sphere and considering researchers and Wine Australia and some of those industry bodies as well. These are organizations, I guess, Shelley, that you guys would work with as well, so that, they're handy to loop in as well.
That's correct. We Most geographical regions in Australia have an industry body, so that's a very local wine industry body specific for the region, and then a lot of employees in wine businesses are also part of other committees and engage at the state and national level on with Wine Australia, Vine Health, and other South Australia wine grape growers and other regional bodies in the other states as well.
Mm. Another thing this guide has identified is the importance of timing. Particularly in your industry, timing is obviously absolutely critical. When it relates to, I guess, vintage times and that sort of thing, could you explain to the teachers, when are the difficult times of year for wineries to consider, bringing extra people on site and that type of thing?
So the obvious one is the vintage period that I guess in Australia, and to cover off on broadly on most regions, that would be from the middle of January to potentially the middle of May. Okay, so those times are peak times with elevated numbers of additional staff and a lot more risk to having visitors on site. So that would be an avoidable time. And outside of that, weather type. You wouldn't December maybe high heat in some areas. So if you were considering a vineyard visit, that may be uncomfortable for students and teachers and advisors to be discussing. And if you're in a very wet region, potentially like, in Tasmania or southern Victoria, June and July may be, extremely cold, particularly if you're trying to organise outside winery site visits and things like that. So spring, I think, is always the best time, and it is weather dependent and I guess region dependent, but August to November is generally a fairly safe time.
Hmm. And I guess considering timelines for the place that you're visiting is a a clever way to go about it, because you know that you might be more lucky in looking in a visit, but also we could look at it as some etiquette, which is also identified in the guide as well. Let's branch out a little bit there and think about things like biosecurity, for example. Are there some things that teachers should be aware of that, vineyards would be considering when it comes to welcoming 30 or 60 or even more students? We're talking busloads of kids from larger schools. Is biosecurity a big consideration for you?
Yes, students, like any visitor, could be a potential risk, mainly for vineyard sites, probably not so much winery sites, but having multiple visitors without their background wandering around your vineyards, yeah, is definitely a biosecurity risk. And there are ways that you can mitigate that you can provide a form with the students, and it could be a basic question on where they've been in the last in the last month or 2 months. Have they been to another agricultural site? And then that would be able to be assessed and the risk managed accordingly. Also, there are dangers in vineyards as well with other pests and things like that. So having large numbers of students who are really curious, and that's the great thing about them, but wandering off in sites that do present with some dangers, snakes and holes and things like that as well.
Hmm. We have an attendee with a question. Lisa, would you mind dropping that question into the chat function, please? I believe because this is a webinar, Zoom webinar won't allow us to turn microphones on for the attendees. So if you wouldn't mind typing your question or comment in, we can pose it to our panelists today. And while I've got you on the topic, Shelley, of, what's sort of appropriate or what to be aware of while on site, when it comes to taking photos, what should teachers and students be thinking about when, they might like to take some photos for their school newsletter or social media? Is that something that needs to be approved before the visit? Is it something worth discussing, or do you think most businesses are happy for that to just happen without the discussion happening?
I think just step back. Most businesses, or in my experience, have a set of site instructions for visitors, and there would be image capture on in that. So there'd be a policy regarding that. I can speak for our business. We would encourage photos, but there would be a discussion first and approval, and potentially where photos may be taken at some parts of the winery, to others. Some staff may not want to be in photos, so it may be more about machinery and instrumentation and location rather than other staff members if some don't approve.
Certainly. And before we move on to Justine, thanks for being so patient, Justine. I I just figured it was easier to sort of focus industry and then school rather than sort of bounce between. So um, I just thought maybe to wrap up our industry part of the discussion, we'll come back to it all together soon, but um, what are the key topics, I guess, or the key pieces of information that you're going to need when it comes to organizing an excursion? I see in the guide it says things like a meeting point, having a clear point where the bus will be stopping, things like making the vineyard aware of student needs, if there's any students that have any special needs or access needs that you need to communicate before the day. And photos, of course, we've discussed that. What are sort of the key pieces of information that you're going to need that teachers could have ready when they approach a vineyard and ask for a visit?
The age group of the student cohort, if there's any specific interest, if there's a gender bias or and that whether they've got a specific interest in one part of the business over the other. If we're looking at high school and trades, maybe they're not so interested in the vineyard themselves. They may want to focus on with the maintenance manager and the apprenticeships and things like that. So a sub focus. How many teachers will be accompanying the students, and understanding that ratio as well. Whether we've got students with special needs and whether we need some quiet time and things like that, whether there would be a requirement for some subgroups as well. So whether some other students with alternative settings may need a one-on-one, because we wouldn't want anyone to miss out. And the time allowed, which is, they mentioned that in the guide, 1 to 1.5 hours, which we feel is a really appropriate time for both teachers, students, and presenters, I think. And a backup plan too. If it all goes awry, the weather isn't kind, what else could we do? And also whether there's an interest in hands-on. So, whether or not that's workable, and we can introduce some hands-on work in the winery in small groups as well.
Wonderful. There's some key points there to really, I guess, when you're starting to think about an excursion, but also when you're coming to that last communication before the actual excursion to make sure all of those boxes are ticked. Thank you so much, Shelley.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so to Justine now, as a teacher who participated in Excited 2025, tell us a little bit about your experience of going to a vineyard in South Australia.
So we're really fortunate in the Riverland here that we've got numerous that we can go to, and usually have parents associated um, with vineyards as well, either the corporates or the family owned. So I guess for me, it's varied over the years. Like the one that we did this year was like a full day and did lots of things. But I guess in our curriculum, it's sort of year 9 level that we base it at. I find that that's sort of the first real year level that are sort of mature enough to go on excursions. But yeah, I've taken them to corporate vineyards, to wineries, to locally owned ones. Usually the locally owned ones is focusing on growers that are doing a really good job and are really progressive. And also we've done organic vineyards as well, just to expose kids to different types of things. So yeah, you can do 1 hour excursion, or you can do it over the whole topic really and focus on
Mhm.
different things to get out of each excursion.
And you mentioned, being in the Riverland of South Australia, spoilt for choice. There's just so many great places to visit in this industry. For some teachers that might be listening who, it would be a bit more of an extension for them. They might not have considered this particular industry before. It sounds like your students get a lot out of it. And Shelley touched on it before, all of the other parts of winemaking when it comes to, the technology and the different things that go into the industry.
Yeah, so you can really get to, when you ask sport for choices, you can really get to do a wide range of things. But even if you only had one vineyard or one winery, you can still get lots of sort of crossover information, like the wine. If it's just a winery, they'll still be able to talk about the grapes and the varieties, and they've probably got some grapevines growing outside the winery anyway as part of their gardens. So it's just about getting what you want to do, and we're really lucky here that we have our own grapes here at school, so we can do some things. Um, we can look at sugar levels. We can assess for insect diseases, all those types of things before we go, so that kids, when they get out there, they've got sort of a bit more of an understanding. So I guess it's not just the excursions; it's look at things that you can be doing in the classroom before or after to be able to enhance that as well. Like, you just need some Beaumont hydrometers and some grapes from the supermarket to be able to look at sugar levels and talk about what sugar levels they're going to need. Um, but I've also got the copy of the chart that the winery gives. So the winery can give you some information too that can help you make it a lot more lifelike in your classroom as well.
So the kids aren't just turning up cold. This is their first
Yeah, yeah. I
first
think
time
sort of
hearing about it.
for lots of excursions, sometimes it works well if it's cold. Other times it's really good for them to have some background knowledge or be part way into the topic to at least be able to get some. We might have done um, irrigation types in class before we've gone on the excursion, and we'll go, and then they'll be able to ask questions about why that grower is 100% drip irrigation, which most are these days anyway. But just so that they've sort of got a bit of background into what they're going to see, or else it can be a bit overwhelming.
Mhm. And so when it comes to organizing one of these excursions, Justine, what's your sort of first port of call? How do you go about starting that process?
Um, for me, most often, really, it has been um, either straight to the top, or a parent, a parent of the school who has a role in those. So, like, for years, I've taken them to one vineyard where the manager was, is past parent now. Um, yeah, so it's just around getting yeah, sometimes it's getting that foot in the door with a company so that they know what you do. You can talk to them about what you do at your school. But yeah, I would probably go to the top so that you know, they can make a decision about whether you're going to fit with their business or not.
Mhm, mhm. And one of the things that's been identified in the industry guide is sort of keeping those connections going, which I think you
Mm.
touched on there. Sort of like, one visit's great, but if you can keep a network or a connection going, then perhaps it can become an ongoing thing that you do every year with the same group.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of people that have my number in their in their phone that shudder when it rings, and they know exactly why it's ringing. But I just tell them they do too good a job to not bring the kids back each year. So
Mm.
and COVID was a really big interruption on the excursions, so we all need to work hard to get back into taking the kids out more.
Mm. Yeah, I organize a lot of excursions in my role here at CQU, and I find as well that um, it does like both sides of the equation are sort of bringing great opportunities in the sense that it's awesome for the t students to get to go there to any excursion, but then also it it could be creating ideas for careers as well, and you might see some of
Yeah.
those students coming back through doing
Yeah,
apprenticeships or
no matter what, it's not only the viticulture excursions. No matter what excursion I take kids on, that's one of the questions is always like, talk to me about jobs, talk to me about, especially the people that are talking, how you got to your job. And you have some really interesting people that have sometimes they've had no agricultural background, and now they're managing 1,000 hectares for a big corporate enterprise. So yeah, I always love the part of it is to talk to the kids about the jobs. And even some of our corporates and things offer holiday jobs, and that's led to permanent jobs later on. So yeah, the job bit is really important.
Mm.
And
Um,
you can get someone to come in and talk to your kids about that as well. If you've got a few grapevines at school, you can get, if getting the kids out there isn't, you might plant 5 or 6 vines in the front of your ag classroom, and over a couple of years have someone come in and help you train them and help you pick them and advise on pests and diseases and things like that. Like, it doesn't have to be a big vineyard. It just has to be that access to expertise that you can bring into your classroom.
Certainly, yeah, incursions are a great way, and it reduces the cost as well if it's a school where,
Mm.
putting cost is makes it a complication. That's
Yeah.
a great way to get around that. Um, some of the preparation and logistics points that have been mentioned in the industry guide. Um, for industry to consider if they were to contact a school to invite a group of students to come, include an attendee list. So making sure they have a list of exactly who's going to be there on the day, which can be so difficult, I know, because, who turns up on the day for some schools is, can be unsure. And then considering safety, biosecurity, if there's a jewelry policy at the business that you're going to make sure that if they go into a packing shed, that's sort of thing that they've got closed in shoes on, nothing sort of dangling or that could get caught. Photo consent, access to toilets, awareness of students that might have any special needs. Is any of this ringing bells for you, Justine? Have you come across any sort of issues where, you might have got somewhere I didn't realize there was a rule, or, you've heard
Yeah,
from other
well, like
teachers?
we've done things like, we've now got a class set of high vis,
Mhm.
that we just grab the tub and go with. But this year we rocked up with our high vis, and they're like, "Oh, we can't have any contamination in the factory. You have to wear as." So yeah, they need to know numbers. Generally, I haven't had to provide lists. They've just been happy for me to be the sign-in person, and how many students are are on site at any one time.
I find as well when I'm organizing excursions, and I'm asking if you think the same thing, sometimes giving the industry person a bit of a heads up of the sort of things that your students are interested in can mean the excursion will be a lot smoother. So you're not sort of having to say, oh, let's talk about this. So in the organizing of the excursion,
Yeah,
actually saying to the industry person, look, we'd love to see, we need to get out and see the grapes because this connects to what we're
yeah.
doing in the classroom.
I guess for most of my excursions, I want, like, if we're out there, we've generally got sort of 40, 50 minutes to an hour, and I want them to see, sometimes it's just a specialist thing, but I also want them to see the whole process. So we actually are on and off the bus all the time. We'll actually drive through the vineyard. We'll get out at the maintenance shed and look at all the machinery and talk about the machinery. We'll get back in. We'll go um, to the chemical shed, and talk about how all the chemicals are stored and loaded safely and all that sort of thing. If sometimes we've been at the end of harvest, so we'll be able to pull up to one of the pads and see the grape bins and things like that. So it's, yeah, it's I find like getting on and off, and then that keeps the kids interested as we're going around. The more excursions you take your kids on, the better they get at it. By the end of the semester, if you've taken them on a few excursions, they will get so good at asking questions. So that driving around on the bus, they can go, what's wrong with that vine over there? Why are those vines higher than those vines? What's that machine? And then it'll be like, oh, they're spraying over there. So you can divert the bus and they can, see a sprayer in action, safely from the bus. So yeah, that getting in and driving around is really good.
Mm. And I think that as a teacher, sometimes it can be there's an assumed knowledge that everyone would understand what a grade 9 student would find is interesting.
Yeah.
And sometimes they need a little bit of guidance on, keeping things interactive or, like I said before, this is specifically what relates to what we're doing in the classroom. And in my experience, people who are offering the excursion, the on-farm industry people, are usually more than happy. I've never had any pushback anyway, to be given a bit of guidance on, this is what we'd like to see. This is how much time we've got exactly.
Yeah.
This is, for these kids, if you've got a particularly active bunch that need to be kept really busy, saving the surprise when you don't save the
Yeah.
surprise for when you get there,
And,
wording them
and I
up,
think the first couple, the good thing about building up really good relationships, and to do that you have to take well-behaved kids there, or the relationship finishes. But
Mhm.
and most of us try to do that. But it's the first couple of times I find myself asking some questions, or can we go and see this, or if I get someone new, sort of talk to them through it a bit more on the bus. But also after you've done it a couple of times, they actually get too good at it, because they know all the questions you're going to ask, they know all the questions the kids are going to ask, and then they
Gets a bit slick.
yeah, it gets a bit
Yeah,
slick, and the kids are kind of like,
yeah,
can't ask
yeah.
any questions because they've told us everything. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's nothing worse than being on excursion that you've booked for an hour and you get 10 minutes in and you think, oh, I've done it all now. Time for some free time. Thank you so much, Justine. And thank you for sharing your experiences there with taking students out on these excursions. So I think that what we've covered here today, shows that there is such a huge amount of opportunities for students and for industry and for schools and teachers when it comes to collaborating together and giving students the opportunity to experience businesses within the viticulture and winemaking sector. So that's the reason for these industry guides and school guides that we've created. I just thought to round up today, we might be able to just have a quick look at where they are. They've just gone live today on the Wine Australia website. And so I'll just take us over to have a look. These links will be sent out to everybody as well. Hoping, can everyone see my screen there? Is that okay? Yeah. So this is the Wine Australia website, and under the careers in viticulture, careers and industry tab, you'll see there's lots of really great resources here for teachers and for industry as well. So scrolling down through different resources and opportunities, onto the wrong tab. Here we go. Sorry. So for schools and teachers, if you scroll down here to the very bottom, connect with the viticulture and wine industry in your area. Here's the teacher's guide here. So that's where it sits. And it's really simple document, easy to read with some really great simple points on what to do. And then for industry, there we go. Great. Yeah, so that's the industry guide there. So they look quite similar in format, but this is the industry guide and this is the teacher guide. So just, I guess, from two perspectives, because of course we can't forget that there might be industry members out there too that are thinking, we'd love to get some students on farm. How do we go through that process? So there's some advice there for industry. Yeah, I think we've covered some really great points. Was there anything else that you'd like to say today, Shelley or Justine? Any other thoughts or ideas?
It would be great for to have some feedback actually for industry from the visiting group, and that I guess with privacy we probably don't need names, but it'd be great to have some comments and a really quick way of being able to do that, so that yeah, we can see how we can improve, and also areas of interest as well.
Mhm. And that's something that was actually identified in the guide in the sense of gratitude. So after you've visited an industry a person, or you've been to a farm or on site at a processing facility, it's always great to say thank you at the time with the students, of course, but following up with an email later, as Shirley mentioned, a great opportunity to give some feedback. This is what worked really well, or, maybe next time we could see this or that. And then that's a great opportunity to continue that relationship. We'd love to come again next year, or we have another set of students in term 3 or something like that. Is that fair to say, Shelley?
Yeah, absolutely. Our staff and our presenters and the people who were involved in our excursion were really keen to continue the conversation in with another group and at another time. So yeah, feedback and how to continue the conversation regionally. Yeah.
Thanks so much. And any closing thoughts there from you, Justine?
Well, I think we've pretty much covered it all, but it's just start small, maybe visit the place beforehand, talk through what you want from them, think about how it's going to fit in with your curriculum. But I think you go to any vineyard, it's got lots of things to interest kids in. That there's the science of growing the vines, there's the practical growing, there's water monitoring, the environmental side of it, there's machinery. Um, there's agronomists that you can get in to talk to your kids. There's fertilizer. There's so many things that you can, and you're not going to get to all of those in one topic. But if you've got experienced kids, then you can push them as far as you want to push them. So, and I would say too, like, it's a bit off just viticulture excursions. You sort of build your kids up, and as you go through your year levels, you're building up their knowledge. So, if you know that you're going to X grower and you're going to expose them to really good fertigation practices, then that's your year level. That's your topic that you really hone in on fertilizer use in crops, because you know that they're going to get some really good learning out of that. So yeah, sort of pitch it to whichever year level you're going to fit it in.
Yeah, and it sounds like, from a teacher that's so experienced in taking excursions to these, to farms in this industry and businesses in this industry, teachers within a region of a vineyard or a winemaking, valley shouldn't be sleeping on this opportunity. So, shouldn't be, overlooking that there's some great opportunities open to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Shelley and Justine. Thank you to the people that were able to join us live today, and also to anyone who's listening later on in the recorded webinar. We'll be sending out the links to the guides that we discussed today to everyone who registered for today, and they will also be in the information below this video as well, if you're watching at a later date. So thanks again for your time, ladies, and have a nice afternoon.